Hi everyone, it's Linda from LindaZ's. Happy holidays. You can see behind me we have a new quilt here. It is a beautiful, actually it's a flannel quilt, cardinals and reds and just beautiful. You could actually have this through the winter. It's so pretty. And of course I have my glitzy little ornament on my shirt, my little Christmas or holiday tree with all the little Swarovski, and you can see these are little ornaments that are just really fun to be able to show you what you can do with the embroidery and some wonderful little glitz. Today, however, I am going to show you how to make a sweet little candle runner. And you know, some of us have seen these mug rugs. You've probably seen what I've done before with that. And this little mug rug is from my coffee cup. I could have a donut here or a Christmas cookie or whatever I would want. But what's really great about this mug rug, you can see I've got it reversed. I actually have done a video on this particular stitching. This is done, the actual quilting here is done with the, maybe Nick you can get that up, and I'll turn it over too. It's done with the AccuStitch regulator from the Janome M17. It's really very, very easy to do when you have a real big design like this. I'm going to turn it to the back side so you can see, let me get it all the glare so you can see what's there. But what I've done on the actual fabric is I've taken and just covered the design that was on the fabric. And then I moved to another little pine cone and another. What's so fun about this, there are no rules. You can go ahead and just play. And these were actually practice, what we call quilt samplers. And you know me and quilters, we don't throw anything away, right? So this was a scrap that I thought, well, I'll use it as my little coffee mug. And then I will also take the longer piece that I had. This was a leftover from a, I'm going to show you in another video, a table runner, a holiday table runner that I thought was so beautiful. We had Kim Goodwin here from Australia, and one of her patterns is what I've done on another table runner, but this was a leftover. And I thought, well, gee, what a great way to practice doing your free motion quilting. And again, it's not making leaves, it's not making forms, it's just, it's almost like thread painting, and yet it's quilting the fabric. You can see it's very, very nicely quilted on the back too. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. The technique that I wanted to show today was an up-close version of the decorative stitches. I've had so many comments, and I really want to thank you guys for really watching that video. I did a little video on the Bernina 475 with the cave stitches for my great-grandchild, and that was for Charlotte, who loves it, by the way. And I just thought the stitches in the cave machine were so spectacular, and why waste them? Why not put them on something fun like a baby quilt or like a little candle mat? And so I decided, because I must have had 5 or 6 people contact me and ask me if I could show you the design up close. So I'm going to actually stitch this last part. I've done it all the way around, but I'm going to actually stitch it where I'll get it up close and you can see exactly how I'm doing these decorative stitches when we do a binding, or anytime you would put it on any kind of a garment. But before I do that, I want to show you what I'm using. This is something called yen met. I'll bring it over here so you can kind of see it on the machine. See how it's got kind of a gold, really pretty metallic look? And this is actually made, it's a thread from OESD. It is my favorite metallic threads. I've got 2. I also have another one that I'm going to show you on another place. But this particular yen met comes in silvers. It comes in kind of a, lilac color almost. Very beautiful soft shades, and Aurora Borealis. I mean, they have some beautiful, beautiful designs. And so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and use this for the binding and use that decorative stitch. Now, I've had people say to me, oh my gosh, you're going to use a metallic thread on a binding and with a decorative stitch? And I said, yeah, you watch. I never had one thread break throughout the whole entire time when I did that and this, and now I'm going to do another one. The key, I think, there's a couple of keys. What I would recommend doing, if you're using a metallic thread and you're doing it on binding, go to a size 90. It will be better. If you're a Bernina person and you have Bernina machines, then you would want to use the Bernina needles. And I use the 90s because they are a little bit, the hole is a little bit bigger for the thread, and it just seems to go through it a little bit better. It doesn't catch, it just goes through and has no issues whatsoever. So use your needles that come with your machine, whether you've got a, whatever brand that you have, use the particular needles for it. The second, and go to the 90 needle. The second thing that I've done is I've used this edge foot, and I think edge feet are just absolutely the way to go. I'm going to take the dual feed off because this machine has a dual feed, and I did use the dual feed. And I want to show you this up close so you can see it a little bit better. This is a 10D. I'm going to put it right next to the package. So you can see this is a 10D. This is a 10C. One of these days I'll learn which camera goes with which. We started with one camera a long time ago, and now to have all these others, it's really wonderful. But you can see this particular one is the 10D, and this is the 10C, and it doesn't look any different until you turn it around. And you see the back? This is the 10D for dual feed. It's got a little opening in there. This is a flat back for a regular 9mm machine. So both of these feet, 10D and 10C, are feet that would go on a 9mm Bernina. Now say that you are lucky enough, like I do, I have a 9mm, but I also have a beautiful 720. I know some of you out there were able to get those. And by the way, there is one 720 left, and the only reason it's left, this lady that was paying on it, her husband went up to the top of the line Bernina, so we still have a 720. They have just come out this summer with the 735, and you know the difference? Somebody out there tell me. What's the difference between just the regular 10 edge foot, the 10D, and the 10C? You know the differences between these two, but the 10 doesn't have a D, it doesn't have a C after it, is for 5mm machines, 5.5. So if you don't have a 9mm, you have a shorter zigzag, that so many quilters love for that perfect stitch for piecing, then you would use a regular 10. So I hope I've been clear on that. What I'm going to use today, of course, is the 10D, because I'm going to use the dual feed. And if you notice, I don't know if you can see that with just this one finger. Do you see how I'm putting that on with one finger? And then I just attach my dual feed on there, and that will keep my fabric and my thread really doing a nice stitch as it goes through. It won't pucker, it won't gather, you won't have any rippling, it'll just make it nice and smooth. Those little techniques, I think, will help you a lot. The other thing that I do when I'm using a metallic thread like this, you want a little lighter thread in your bobbin, and I just happen to have the Aurifil that I was using on my, when I was piecing on another thing. This is an Aurifil 50 weight thread, so it's the higher the number, the finer the thread. So it's a finer weight thread. It's almost like a 60 weight when you're doing embroidery. So this 50 weight Aurifil thread was perfect in my bobbin. And it also has a little touch of gold, so it looks very nice with the unmet thread. So I would recommend a lighter weight thread when you're doing that. The next thing that you are going to see, I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to go to the camera that is set up with the machine so you can actually see what I'm doing on the screen. Let me go back to the home screen so you can see. When you have the home screen here, and I'm used to my stylist being here, but I see it's not here, so I actually have, don't use this if you don't have the plastic on it. I do have the little Biani one here. So I'm going to touch the sewing, and it remembered because I had already put it on here. But say I went to another stitch, and now I come back to this stitch, and it's going to set it up automatically for the stitch that I want on this particular machine. And this happens to be stitch 7108. But there's some other things that are really important when you get this, when you have a machine like this. This is the 770 CAFE. If any of you have any of the 7 Series machines, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This little cheat sheet over here is what I call it. They're little icons on the left. I know there's a name for them. But the great part about this is that it tells you the foot. Now, if I had say I had an embroidery foot on here, and I did before we were doing embroidery on this machine, and I forgot to change on my screen the foot. So what happened? It looked like we were going to call the mechanic because the stitches that came out there did not look like this beautiful little Christmas tree. And the only reason it did is because I hadn't changed the foot. Do you see over here, when I touch that foot, there's a whole array of, look at 7 pages of feet. And the one that I'm actually using is this 10D, which I'm going to touch again so you can see it. I'm going to get out of there. And now it's saying that I had the right foot on. Of course, you want to have the right plate. This is a zigzag plate. You couldn't do it if, see how it says 9 millimeter? You wouldn't be able to do this at all if you had a straight stitch plate on. And many of us go back and forth between piecing and, you know, doing decorative stitching. So you definitely change your plate if you are in a straight stitch plate. You want to go to the zigzag plate. Those important things will make your sewing, it turns out beautiful is what I can say. I've got my stitch to start. You see I've hit my little start stitch. See that little dot right there? That's going to start where it is. I've actually made my, my stitch length a little bit longer. If I go back down to, I think it's 11.4 is the default. It's pretty close. I'm actually going to make it a little bit longer. I want it just a little bit longer as it's going through there. If I want to go back to the default, as soon as this turns to white, you see that's the 2 defaults. This is your zigzag right here, which is your 9 point over here, and 11.4 is the stitch length. And again, watch again as I change this. I'll just get out of the camera here so you can see it. See how it's changing? Maybe I'll leave it a little bit different. It isn't really going to matter because the important thing that we're doing on here, I mean, I think I used it at the default, so I might put it back there because you won't notice it, but quite frankly, I will because I'll see the difference when I'm doing it. The important part when you're starting on something like this, use your knee lift lever. I've heard so many people, now watch this, this foot come up and down. You see I'm not touching it? See how that foot comes up and comes down? Because you want to get in there and adjust that exactly where you want it to start. And it's going to start right at the beginning of the design. The other thing that I think is really important for you to know, these are exclusive CAFE designs that are, you know what exclusive means for CAFE, right? He only put these designs, he drew them all out into this machine. If you don't have this machine, you do not have those designs. I don't care what you do, you can't get them. So I think I might have to have this machine because I love these designs. Now I'm going to take this little plastic off and use my stiletto because it's got a little bit of a rough edge on it, so it's nice and easy. And what I'm doing is I am having the fold of this binding come right up to this edge. Do you see that edge right there? It's coming right up to that little edge of the foot. Let me get out my hand out of the way so you can see it on this side. See how it's right there? There's nothing here. This is the wide opening of the foot. So when the zigzag stitch starts, right here at that little 0, it's going to go out and back. It's going to go this side, and then it's going to go up to the top. So what we're doing, it's a forward and backward motion stitch. What does that mean? If you have a forward and backward motion stitch, what do you have to be careful of? I heard it. I'm sure somebody said it out there. You have to be very careful. You're not pulling your fabric. Because if you pull your fabric, it distorts the stitch and it makes the stitch, it won't complete the stitch the way it's supposed to look. So you have to be very careful. holding the fabric when it starts to go back, but you're guiding the fabric with this beautiful little glide on the foot. So let me go ahead and start. I don't think I need this for anything else. You've pretty well seen I've got the foot down when I'm going to start. I have my button on, so it's going to start with the beginning of the stitch. And now half of this stitch is going to go on the right side of the binding. And now I'm going slow. In fact, I'm going to turn this speed down so you can, this is stitch by stitch. This would drive me crazy if I had this all like this, but I want to show you what it's doing. Do you see how it went backwards there? Now it's going forward, and now it's going backward. Backwards. You see that? And you can kind of even hear it. Okay. And now it's going forward because we're finished with that stitch. And you see how it's going to start the next stitch. So let me do this again. Now I can see as I've moved this binding along, my binding kind of went over a little bit. So now my stiletto, it comes in very handy here because I can bring it right over to this edge. And that stitch is going to be half on and half off the binding. So watch it again, and you can see I'm doing everything. If this is the first time you've ever done binding, I probably don't recommend that you do the metallic thread, but look, we're not having any trouble at all. If you follow all the little steps that I've told you, you really won't have any trouble. But again, if you've got a machine that you're not real used to, then I would recommend using just regular thread. You can see as I'm going through this now, see how it's going forward and backwards? Forward and backwards. And again, I'm not pushing it all. See how it went up there? And it went up to the next stitch. It's actually one beyond. As I go through this, I'll show you. Now, I know this foot is going to come up to this little clip. And I've talked to you many times about putting your clip with the flat side down. I'm going to take this one off right now so it's not in there. I really prefer these little ones when you're doing, I'm doing a 2-inch binding. I know many of you do 2.5, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong for bindings. Do what you like. This is a very little, it's a very slim candle mat. It's a long one. And I just think it looks prettier with a little tiny binding. But again, maybe you want to show off your binding, and so you want to make it wider. Again, there's no right or wrong. So again, let's get this fold right up to this metal edge here. And as it's going, you can see it's going forward. And here it's going forward, and then it took one stitch backwards, and now it's going backwards. And you see how I'm not holding it at all. If I were to hold that, what would happen is, again, it would all bunch up. So I'm going to move on a little bit more. I can do this without the stiletto because I'm used to doing it. Did you see how nice this, when it kind of stopped because of this little this little thing on the back? And I'm going to show you what this is for in another video, but it's for pressing open your seam, and I just love it. I do like Alex Anderson's too, as long as I'm showing you this. And the reason I like hers, it's a little bit wider, and when you go to press open a 1/4-inch seam, it just seems to press it a little bit better without stretching the fabric. Again, these little stilettos are just a wonderful thing to be using when you're doing some kind of your quilting designs. The stiletto itself is to hold your fabric as it's going in, but you really have to be aware that you're just pushing the fabric against the edge. You're not holding the fabric, or it will distort the design. And I know I'm going into a lot of explanation on that, but I just wanted you to see. Now, do you see how I'm, with my finger, let me hold that on this side so you can kind of see it. Again, I am not holding this fabric at all. I'm just guiding this fold of this binding, this fold right here. I'm just guiding it as it goes into the, as it goes up to the ledge. Now, if you are, not sure what to do, put your needle down in, check it, and make sure that you've got that fold right over there. The other thing you can see on the screen that I do have my needle down. I think most of you have machines that have a needle up, needle down. This is essential when you're doing this kind of work, because if I had to have my needle up all the time, it would be really difficult. I also have a tapping feature on the foot control of this machine where I can tap it and it'll go down in there. If it happens to, it's not going to stop up, but say I pushed it up and now I need to have it go down. I can just tap it with my foot, and the vice versa for bringing it back up again. Okay, so let's keep going. And I am going to use this, as I can see, this little, and that's the operator. That was the operator that made the binding, because I can see what's happening. Now this was it was just like a 1/16 of an inch smidgen off, and that's when it's harder to get this binding right up to the edge of your, see the fold of your foot. This, by the way, is my favorite foot. I think you probably heard me say that before. If you've done any kind of top stitching or any kind of edge stitching and not used one of these feet, I can't even, the next time you are able to do it, get yourself a foot like this. And they make them for other sewing machine companies too. You'll be just amazed at the work that will happen. Now you can start to see, that needle was up, that's why it kept stopping up. You can see as I'm going along here how beautiful that stitch is, and it's going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. So I'm going to finish it up because I want you to be able to see what I do. This is really the fun part about the holidays. You, I hope, would have something to put on this candle mat. And I just ordered from, I don't know if they can see this straight on, Nick. I just ordered from West Elm. If you've not heard of that company, it's a wonderful little company. And actually, I ordered 3. This one, and another one. They're on sale right now, too. And this is the new Mercury. I ordered it in silver. It's got a little gold in the background. But you could order it in gold, too, and then it would be much shinier. But I just think they're wonderful, and I like to be safe. So holidays, I do a lot of you probably can't see this in these lights, but I can turn these candles on. They're much better than when you have to take one and light it. I do have lighted candles too, but on these particular ones, and then there'll be one more here when it comes, and see how pretty that looks for the holidays. I think it's just a really fun thing. I have a couple of tools that I'm going to show you that came in, but I think I might wait till my next video. Cafe, you know what this is, don't you? I just love this. If you have anything you have to get that you don't want to reach for, this little metal thing will do it. The new little flower pins, the new scissors, I'll explain that in another video. But I just hope that you are having a wonderful holiday season. Try some of these out with your scraps, some of the things that you have been working on at home. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you next week with a wonderful holiday table runner.